Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everyone. Back to our Dynasty Talk. We are so excited to have you here with us. Kendall Valenzuela, as always, with Jake Trowbridge, the one and only Jake. I'm super excited for this show today because not only we're going to a crystal ball, we're going to try and see into the future, but now you and I are actually in a Dynasty league together. We're doing a startup draft right now. So if people are listening and they're like, wow, they seem really hostile towards each other, maybe something went down. Yeah, it's only because we're in a league together now. So this could go back and forth. How you doing?
I mean, I'm great. If we just put all that aside for just 1 hour, I feel like we can do that. We can put it aside. We can go from friends to rivals back to friends for this podcast, and then we'll get after it afterwards. But otherwise, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm great. I want the people to know, Jake's already turned down one of my trade offers, so that's where we're at. But, it's one of these things, though, Jake, where Dynasty, I'm like, okay, Dynasty startup, it's been a while, and I'm super excited. But then people, when Jake sends you a trade offer, I have to look inward, and I have to turn to myself and say, you're probably getting played, because Jake knows so much about Dynasty. I'm like, I might be getting played. He knows more. And so I just have to reevaluate my life. But that's what we're doing. It's been fun.
Never. I would never do that to you. I might do that to other people in the league, but never you,
Perfect.
Kendall.
You know who would, though? Swing. Our producer, Matt Swing, would. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. That's fine. We'll have so many stories now from this draft and from this league. But as always, we're excited to have you here with us. FantasyLife.com. That's where you can go and check out all of our Dynasty related articles. But like I said, Jake, this is going to be such a fun show because not only are we doing like Dynasty debates and we're going back and forth, but we're doing the Dynasty crystal ball. So let's get into that, presented here by DraftKings. All right, the Dynasty Crystal Ball here, Jake, presented by DraftKings. Shout out again to our graphics team because they do an absolutely amazing job, and that was a fun watch. So here's how we're going to talk about Dynasty today, just to lay it all out for everyone. We've got some different scenarios that could or could not happen for the 2025 season. So we're going into the Dynasty Crystal Ball. I'm going to give us some scenarios, and you're going to tell me if you're buying or selling that. If you believe that that's going to happen, and you can predict the future, or if you're kind of going against what the crystal ball says and you're saying, no, I do not stand for that. So let's get started right here and dive right in. Oh, Jake, and we're starting spicy because that's what we do in this show. So go into the crystal ball. Jayden Daniels has a sophomore slump and Terry McLaurin finishes outside the top 15. Are you buying that, or are you selling that idea that could happen this season?
I mean, personally, I don't even like the fact that you decided to put this out into the ether, but now that it's out there, we just have to deal with it and address it. I do think if we're talking about a slump and we're looking at it compared to like a CJ Stroud-esque slump, that big of a drop off, I'm not that worried. But if we're talking worse than last year, yeah, almost definitely, because it's hard not to be worse than last year, only because he was so amazing as a rookie and because so many things went exactly right for the Commanders. I was just thinking back to how often we were watching those games and the fourth quarter comes around, a couple minutes left, and then it's like magic from Jayden Daniels and company. And how many of those comebacks or near comebacks are on the horizon for that team? How many of those late stage fantasy points should we expect from him? I don't know, but I will say this. I think it's going to be very hard for Terry McLaurin to notch another 13 touchdowns. That was second most amongst wide receivers last season. That was a franchise record for the Commanders. You know, Terry McLaurin, one thing you might not know about him, big time contested catch guy. In fact, 9 of those 13 touchdowns were off of contested catches. That feels very unsustainable to me. That does speak to Jayden Daniels' aggressiveness, though, which I do like, and I do think will help him over some of maybe those humps that are on the horizon for 2025. I am a little worried about injury risk with this guy. I try to never factor that in too heavily, but with Jayden Daniels especially, like he's so aggressive with the way he plays and the way he runs that I always keep that box half ticked, just in case. But I do think that with McLaurin, he got 13 touchdowns and was wide receiver 16 in points per game. So if he falls back a little bit, regresses a little bit in the touchdown department with Debo there, I could see it. So I am buying that.
Ooh. But you're buying the Terry McLaurin part, or you're buying the whole thing that we see a little sophomore slump from Jayden Daniels?
I'm buying the whole thing. Now, let me be clear.
Whoa, I did
Buying
not
the Jayden
expect
Daniels
that.
slump does not mean that I am staying away from Jayden Daniels. I want to be clear
Okay.
about that. But I do think he's going to take a step back. So if you're drafting him as the number 2 quarterback off the board or number 1 quarterback off the board, as a lot of folks are, I think you should just lower your expectations from what they were
Hmm.
last year. Doesn't mean he won't be great for you for fantasy. Doesn't mean he's not going to be an every week starter. But yeah, in our definition of slump, where it's a little worse than last year, absolutely.
All right, Jake, but here's my thing. Because I'm on the opposite side of you. I am not buying that Jayden Daniels is going to have this sophomore slump. Because first of all, it would just make me really sad if that would happen. And I understand that, sophomore slumps happen all the time. We saw it last season, like you just said, with CJ Stroud. But to me, when I look at him finishing as the QB4, he set rookie records for the most quarterback rushing yards, 891. And that's the one thing that we like with fantasy football, right? We always try and go for the upside with the rushing yards, but he was so dang good. He scored 20 plus points 10 times, averaged 29.9 points during the fantasy playoffs. And I think they also went into this offseason and helped him to get better. Like, they made sure Cliff Kingsbury stayed around. Deebo Samuel is there. I know for me, Jake, I don't think I can go back to the Deebo Samuel well, but that is another weapon for him. And it's still Deebo Samuel. Hopefully he doesn't have pneumonia this year, because he went actually through some serious injuries last season. And so for me, when I look at it, I can't buy it. I can't buy this. I'm selling it.
I don't want to. Let me be clear. I don't want this to happen for Jayden Daniels. And again, I don't think it's going to be terrible. It might not even be super noticeable. It's just for the people who put their expectations through the roof with this guy, because it happens and it's very easy to get sucked in. And I just want to say, take a step back. Take one step back. I do like Deebo Samuel being there for him. I'd say what you want about the guy. He is an upgrade over Olamide Zaccheaus as the number 2 in that offense, at least. Doesn't mean I'm going to go haywire drafting him in fantasy myself, but for Jayden Daniels' purpose, yeah. So this is such a wishy-washy answer. I want to almost take it back, but I'm not going to.
You can't.
I am buying into both sides of this.
And you hope that Matthew Berry doesn't watch this episode and give you a call, and just say, Jake, what are we doing here? We can't, just don't let Matthew see this. But here's the thing, Jake, I understand with the sophomore slump, you're buying him right now and hoping that he has a QB1 overall finish, because that's where he's going. He's going inside the top 3. I think he's ranked right now, and he's going off the board there on Underdog, which I again think deservedly so. But you're hoping, best case scenario, it's QB1 overall season. But I still do think that Jayden Daniels has that in him, especially after what we saw last season with a QB4 finish. So there's our first crystal ball. We're already split. I thought that would be the easiest one for us to do. So now I'm really excited to see where we're at throughout this whole show. Let's go to the next one for the crystal ball. We got to talk about Travis Kelce. We haven't talked about him recently here. So Travis Kelce rides off into the sunset, has 1,000 plus receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. Are you buying or selling this?
I like the idea of Travis Kelce for your dynasty team being the hero, riding in on that horse, and plug and play for Travis Kelce one last time. Sounds great. I'm pretty skeptical, because Travis Kelce has only hit that 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown marker 3 times in his career. Those were prime years for Travis Kelce. I know it feels like he does it every single time out, just because the rest of the tight end group tends to be a little underwhelming from year to year, but he is now 35 years old. It has never happened in the history of our fantasy sports that a tight end 35 years or older has come out with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. It happened almost one time with Tony Gonzalez. He notched 930 yards, but it's not to be expected. And I know that he's special. Travis Kelce, you are a very special boy if you're listening, but I can't get on board with him delivering to this level to close out his career. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go after him in redraft. It doesn't mean that you can't trade just a little something to get him in Dynasty if you think that you are a tight end away, because I do think that he can be very usable. But even top 3 finish for Travis Kelce feels like it could be a stretch at this point.
If you are buying Travis Kelce right now, I hope you're giving up nothing. I hope you're giving up nothing, and that's just respectfully, and that's just really because to me, I'm with you. I'm not buying this, and you know how optimistic I like to be, and I'm hoping that he does get to ride off into the sunset because there were points last season, Jake, where it was like, yeah, Travis Kelce, this is the final year, and I do believe, like a lot of other people said, if they would have won that Super Bowl, that we wouldn't even be talking about Travis Kelce right now. But I know it was disappointing, overall for Travis Kelce managers. He expressed frustration at the end of the season. So 97 receptions, only 3 touchdowns. So I guess you could look at that and say, oh, positive regression's coming. He has to score more touchdowns than that. But it just feels like unfortunately, we're at the back half of Travis Kelce's career. The better football days are behind him. And I'm with you. That doesn't mean that, hey, he can't still produce for you a little bit because, Jake, if we're talking tight ends and we're talking dynasty, and redraft, to be totally honest, I'm going to take Travis Kelce over Kyle Pitts every single day of the week. There is a limit here to where we could talk about Travis Kelce and say, oh, you should, go ahead and get someone else, go get a Jake Ferguson. There's just a line where we have to draw it. But if you are trading for him in Dynasty, I still stand by that, where don't give a lot up. Don't think that, even if you are one tight end away, just know you're probably only going to get 1 year out of him. And it could be closer to the season that we just saw.
Yeah, Kendall, I don't know if I'm the one to break this to our audience. I hope not. People get old. People get old. And then they're a little bit worse, not Paul Rudd and not me, obviously, but everybody else tends to get old and just slightly worse as that happens. So Travis Kelce, couple that with the fact that, too, the Kansas City offense is a lot tamer than it used to be. It just is. Yeah. They're not relying on, hero ball constantly from Patrick Mahomes. And we should just temper that expectation because this offense has looked different the last couple of years. And I don't think that they changed that, right? You win a Super Bowl, you nearly win another Super Bowl. I don't think that they automatically go let's take it back to Patrick Mahomes' first year in the league and just go ape with this. So again, he's not unusable, but just be cautious.
Where did he go in Sam Wallace took Patrick Mahomes. Now this is shifting to a dynasty Patrick Mahomes conversation, but this is super flex. So I do want to say that for people. He went in the obviously first round, 9th overall pick. So went ahead of guys like Bo Nix. Wow. He went Justin Herbert, and then some lower guys, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Baker Mayfield. Do you think that's if you're in a startup situation right now, or you're just looking at overall dynasty quarterback rankings, and this again was super flex, do you still have him kind of in that range?
I think he's getting by on name value just a little bit in that tier. I have him firmly outside of that initial group. You've got your guys, obviously your studs, your Josh Allen, Jayden Daniels, Lamar Jackson. That's an entirely different tier than where Patrick Mahomes is. And I feel like Patrick Mahomes just sort of rides that line between tier 1 and tier 2 a lot just based on what he'd done historically. So I'm not saying that that's a bad pick at 9th overall in a Superflex Dynasty startup, but me personally, that feels a little like fool's gold at this moment. Okay. I'd be waiting, even if I'm not going to get him a few picks later, I can get somebody of his fantasy caliber a few picks later.
Yeah, because I remember a couple episodes ago we were talking about, and this was dramatic, but it was like, hey, now we have to start talking about the Drake Mays going maybe a little bit ahead of him, the Justin Herbert. So it is an interesting conversation to frame around that. So good to know, but I'm with you. We're back on the same page here, Jake. Travis Kelce, sorry. We do love you, though. We hope that this happens. We hope that we're wrong, but we're not buying it. We're not buying the riding off into the sunset 1,000 plus receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. The next one here, and this is where it gets interesting. So the Giants start 3 different quarterbacks in 2025. This is the first part of this with the crystal ball. This includes Jackson Dart, and they all stink. What happened? What happens, Jake? They all stink, and then we have to talk, if that does happen, about what that means for Malik Nabers. So let's start with the first half. Buying or selling that the Giants are going to start 3 different quarterbacks. So that's Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart, and they all stink. What happens in that situation?
Buying that 1,000%. And if you want to throw Tommy DeVito into the mix and say that he somehow gets a start before Jameis or something, whatever, I don't care. It's all going to be bad. It is going to be bad. I do think that Joe Shea and Brian Dable, they are working every last option that they have this year to not get fired. So like rotating their quarterbacks, that's a way that they can at least insulate themselves from some criticism and go like, well, it was up and down as a year because we had all these different quarterbacks coming in. So I think that that's something they would absolutely do. I think Jackson Dart starts probably the second half of the season, if I were to guess. But what it means for the pass catchers there, and specifically Malik Nabers, that part I'm not so worried about. We saw what happened last year, and it's on the screen right now, what Malik Nabers did with Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, and Drew Lock. It's nothing short of heroic. Him and Dwayne Johnson should do a buddy team-up movie with how heroic he looked last season. The guy still got 170 targets in 15 games. Put up 1,200 yards. That's pretty nice. The touchdowns weren't there because the quarterback play wasn't there. But if you can get that level of production out of Russell Wilson and a very sought-after rookie quarterback, at least, in Jackson Dart, I think that's a pretty solid baseline to work off of. I just don't think it can be worse than last year. Kendall, please tell me it can't be worse than last year.
No, it can't be, right? And this is Jake. I'm having such a difficult time with this because I have my wide receiver rankings live now. They just came out. They came out today at fantasylife.com. And I had a hard time with Malik Nabers only because of the Russell Wilson situation, because, I love vintage Rush. He got my Seahawks a Super Bowl, and it's absolutely amazing what he was able to do. But again, this is another guy where the best football is kind of behind him. So I wrote out that however many games Russell Wilson starts, that's going to sink or help swim for Malik Nabers. Like that's going to make or break him going into this season, because I just don't believe in Russell Wilson. Now, give me Jameis Winston. We're good to go. Everything's fine. Give me Jackson Dart, who I know is unproven, but if they need to start winning games and these guys are already on the hot seat, Brian Dable's coming into to a seat that's already really warm for 2025. If they don't win games early, they're going to go to Jackson Dart. So I think it's a better situation if we see Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart. If it's Russell Wilson, it does make me a little bit more nervous. So depending on how many games he's able to start, I think that's going to hurt Malik Nabers just a little bit, but I'm still buying him, right? I think he's my wide receiver 6, and that's only because I'm higher than consensus on Brian Thomas Jr. and and then Puka Nacua is my wide receiver 5. But the only thing that makes me nervous is Russell Wilson. That's really the only quarterback here.
That's so interesting that you mentioned it like that Russell Wilson is, at this stage in his career, the worst of all those options from a fantasy perspective. Is it just because you're worried that every time he gets the ball snapped to him, he's going to run around for like 4.5 minutes until he tries to escape and then takes a sack? Ultimately, is that what we're expecting?
And it's the relying, because the vintage Russ, the thing that's still there is the moon balls, right? Like we can tell ourselves a story and say like, okay, thank goodness Russell Wilson is still good at that. Here's a stat: nobody had a higher passer rating or average more yards per attempt on passes thrown at least 20 yards downfield in 2024. That was including the playoffs for Russell Wilson. So he still has that. I just don't know. I don't know why, Jake. Maybe it's just my gut feeling with Russ, where I'm just like, oh man, another year, another team, and I just don't think. But the other part of me where I counter it and I try to give myself, the other side, is that I say, well, Malik Nabers was able to do all this stuff with bad quarterbacks last season. I mean, we're talking Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, shout out to Drew Lock, but Drew Lock was still there. And then Daniel Jones, who's now trying to compete for, a QB1 spot with the Indianapolis Colts. So that's the other side where I have a hard time with Malik Nabers, because he almost just seems quarterback proof. But for now, he's still and it's still good, wide receiver 6. But I don't know why going into the season, I'm a little bit nervous and hesitant on Russ Wilson.
Fair enough. Well, wheels up for Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt then for the games that Russell Wilson starts with that moon ball.
Let's go. Let's hope so. And Malik Nabers, please just be quarterback proof, because we can't do this. We can't go back and forth. We believe in you. We know that it's going to happen. So let's just say Jameis Winston season. I think that's all that we need for fantasy managers, right, Jake? Is that not the best case scenario for the Giants and fantasy managers in 2025?
It's the best case scenario for everybody when it comes to fantasy, any team. So yeah, let's just have him suit up every week, even if it's for a different team. That's fine. Just get him out there.
All right, that was our Dynasty debates. We went through the Dynasty crystal ball there, presented by DraftKings. All right, basketball fans, it's crunch time. The NBA playoffs are heating up and every game is do or die. With the finals on the horizon, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Right now, you can play along with DraftKings Pick 6, a fresh and exciting way to experience daily fantasy sports. All new customers who play just $5 will score $50 in bonus picks to keep you in the game. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and sign up with code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. All right, continuing on here with our crystal ball, trying to look to the future in 2025 and see what we're buying, what we're selling with some of these scenarios for our dynasty squads. And for, we're sprinkling in a little redraft conversation here, Jake, as well. This one with Justin Fields is probably one that's going to split a lot of the fantasy football community, because you can understand why a lot of people are going to be out. You can understand the other side where people say, well, it's a new fresh start with the Jets, and he's got the rushing upside, so he could give us a lot of fantasy goodness. So here's the crystal ball situation. Justin Fields finishes as a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Are you buying or selling that for 2025?
I'm buying that thing so hard. I'm cashing in my 401k to buy this take for Justin Fields. As long as that guy is out on the field, he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback. I don't mean to be harsh. I don't care what happens in terms of real life football for this team or this fella. For fantasy purposes, he's a must start. So this year, maybe next year, right? He has a 2-year contract with the Jets. I'm all in. And the good news in Dynasty is you don't have to give much to get this guy because he is on his third team. People are losing faith in him. I think most folks anyways. But I want to call out this stat. Ian Hartitz did a write-up on the Jets and what his expectations are for the team this year. And he mentioned that there's 3 or 4 quarterbacks, I forget, that finished top 5 in fantasy points per drop back 3 years running. And Justin Fields is one of those guys. So literally, when he's out there, he's racking up fantasy points for you. He's finished over the last 3 seasons, QB5, QB11, and QB8 in the games that he's played. Beyond that, beyond this year, even into next year, I don't know. But because it takes so little to get him onto your dynasty rosters at this point, do it, reap the benefits. If you want to turn around and trade him away after this season, or heck, even mid-season, if you believe that for some reason Tyrod Taylor, his time is nigh and Fields is going to get benched, which I don't think would happen, then do that. But don't overlook him entirely.
Yeah, I agree. And I love your point that you made about, real life football and fantasy football. This is where it's an obvious difference, because in real life, I remember talking to my dad. He's like, Justin Fields stinks. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Justin Fields in fantasy, though, is really good. And it's just like this split where, real life and fantasy, they don't mesh well with Justin Fields. And I agree, though. I am buying this situation where Justin Fields having a full season to be able to be that guy, to be that QB1. If you follow, I like to follow the money in that 2-year, $40 million contract makes me believe he's not going to be looking over his shoulder unless, Jake, like you said, he doesn't live up to expectations. And so I think that he will, though. He is right now, I believe, QB 12 in our fantasy life rankings. And I think that's the perfect spot to get him. And I think too, when we talk about redraft, he's one that I'm willing to wait for. He seems like one of those guys, like how we talked about Jayden Daniels last season, where we're like, he's going too late. He has the rushing upside, and he should be going a lot higher than he is. And that seems like it could be Justin Fields. He joins Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels as the only quarterbacks in NFL history to average at least 50 rush yards per game. That was a stat from shout out to Ian Hartitz there as well. So I don't know, Jake, to me, the rushing upside makes this a this makes it an option that it could happen. And for me, the only thing is yes, he's not good, through the air. He has to work on that. It's 37th in EPA per drop back among 45 qualified quarterbacks. So the expectations through the air, Garrett Wilson managers might not be as excited, but for any dynasty managers of Justin Fields, I would say go get him now too, right, Jake? Now's the time when we're in a lull and we don't have the news. Come training camp time, and they're going to post all the bombs that he throws and everything like that. They're going to post all the highlight reel plays on social. Get him before those start happening.
Yeah, hold your nose, ignore the passing stats, don't watch the games, and just enjoy watching the points go up on your roster. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, definitely don't watch those. Are you in the same, because this is an interesting with Garrett Wilson, has he kind of gone down in your mind for dynasty rankings because of Justin Fields coming here? Or are you on the other side with Garrett Wilson saying, well, they're old Ohio State buddies, they should have a connection right away, and Garrett Wilson is going to be, the only one getting targeted on this team? Which side are you on with the Garrett Wilson conversations?
I err in favor of his history with like DJ Moore when he was with the Bears. A lot of people were very concerned about DJ Moore's fantasy value, and that was a lot to do about nothing for the most part. So I think it's the same with Garrett Wilson. Certainly not a lot of other options. That's the bad news for Justin Fields. Not a lot of other guys there to throw to that are proven, at least. So Garrett Wilson will certainly get his share of targets, at least, if nothing else. So I'm fine with him. And you can probably buy him at a dip right now as well for people who are concerned.
Yeah, I'm on the clock in our dynasty league, and I might take the whole 8 hours for both of my picks. Garrett Wilson's there, Ted McMillan's there. I'm just saying, I might take my time and get two good wide receivers. That's all I'm going to say about it. All right, let's go over to
fight. This is us fighting.
This is it. This is where the people listening will understand. They'll be like, "Oh, there's a rift. They can't get it together." It's fine. We'll make it through this episode. We promise. Let's go over to Tampa Bay. A lot of questions surrounding, I guess, Bucky Irving and his status, as the guy in this offense. So, are you buying or selling? Bucky Irving ends up in a committee and gets 40% of the rush share. Buying or selling this situation for 2025?
I'm selling that a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's mostly because I get the concerns. He's an undersized guy. Nobody expected him really to do what he did last season. And so there's always that thing of like, the other shoe's going to drop with this guy. I just don't see it. When we saw initially Bucky Irving, my greatest fear was that he was going to come in and Rachaad White was just going to lose a lot of value, but Bucky himself would not have a lot of standalone value. And that was true for the first half of the season. I actually just saw that the running backs coach for Tampa Bay, though, helped kind of explain that, which is that Bucky apparently wasn't in good enough conditioning at that early stage of the season. So that's why he didn't stay out there more. And Rachaad White was out there more, even though he was less effective. But once we got to that stretch, week 10 hit Bucky Irving, and everything goes drastically towards his direction. They were split a little bit on the passing down work, but even if Rachaad White retains that part of things, I'm still in on Bucky Irving, definitely for the lion's share of the rushing attempts. Although Matthew Berry did point out in his offseason article about things that he was learning pre-draft that Tampa Bay does really love Sean Tucker, and we might see a little bit more Sean Tucker. But yeah. I see that as something that's going to eat into Rachaad White, not something that's going to eat into Bucky.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not necessarily buying this all the way, but I do buy the potential Sean Tucker, the guy that we should be looking at as the handcuff for Bucky Irving managers. Like, because we always look at this and we say, okay, who should, just in case someone were to go down, what could happen? And I'm with you, Jake. I'm off on Rachaad White this year. I could see myself having 0% Rachaad White, even in my most desperate situations where I'm looking around like, I need a running back, and this is a really good offense. I'll probably just continue to wait and go with Sean Tucker. At what he was able to do, what Bucky Irving was able to do for this team last season, it just feels to me, again, you can't, what are the weird ones? Like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like, you just saw how dominant he was. And I know, again, this is going to be another season for Tampa Bay losing an offensive coordinator. But to me, I think, first of all, Baker Mayfield has already proven that to himself that he does, even with the turnover at offensive coordinator, it's going to be fine. And so for Bucky Irving, I think this team is going to look at him and say, you know what, he just showed how good he was last season. Rachaad White is not going to hold a candle to him, and it's more going to be Sean Tucker. But again, I think that's going to push him up a little bit in drafts, and especially in dynasty drafts, it does make Sean Tucker a little bit more interesting, where if you don't get the Bucky Irving, you can get someone else in this offense that could potentially step up and get I can see him getting a little bit more work, but not work that's really eating into the workhorse role for Bucky Irving. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, Sean Tucker's out there for a fourth round pick in your fourth round rookie pick in your dynasty leagues, if he's not on the waivers outright. So scoop him up. Yeah. If you don't want to pay up high for this little bowling ball with a rocket ship attached to him and Bucky Irving, then go get Sean Tucker. I agree.
Look at the stats. I mean, just even the stats on the screen. It's just he was just so dominant. You can't tell me, Jake, that even when looking at this, that they're going to say, no, we're actually good. Everything's fine, and we're going to go ahead and give this make this more of a split. So I'm out on Rashad. Are you drafting Rashad White anywhere, or are you still kind of okay with
Never.
him?
Not
Okay.
even if
All right.
there's a
Just wanna make
fire.
sure.
I refuse. Yeah.
Not even if we're like, you have to do this, Jake, for the show. He's not going to do it, folks. I'm sorry. He's not going to do it. We can ask the same
I've got
question, though,
principles.
about May. We could ask the same question here about potentially Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley. May I interest you, Jake, in a Calvin Ridley? Here's the situation. Cam Ward turns Calvin Ridley into a top 20 wide receiver. You buying or selling that for this year?
My problem with Calvin Ridley, my problem with Calvin Ridley is that he is essentially Terry McLaurin without the touchdowns. In fact, so many of their stats were identical in terms of their target share, their targets per route run. And I don't look at Cam Ward as somebody who's going to come and be able to resurrect the ship of the Tennessee Titans all by himself. Now, the good news is that Tennessee did at least try to upgrade their offensive line from last season, which was desperately needed. I don't know how good it's going to be this year because he's going to need it to be respectable at least. But Cam Ward just strikes me as like he's got too many Will Levis tendencies that I think need to be ironed out just a little bit, that I don't think we should expect his rookie season to lead to all this growth for Calvin Ridley. And, you know, he doesn't have a lot of target competition. You know, no offense to any of the guys that were added this offseason. There weren't any all-stars added to the depth chart for wide receiver, at least. So from a target share perspective, yeah, he should be fine. Can he notch double-digit touchdowns, which I think is what he's going to need to crack that top 20? I don't think he can. So I'm out on this one.
Yeah, I'm like slightly out. I'm out, but I don't hate the idea of either buying Calvin Ridley or getting him in a redraft league. I will say that. I'm not totally out on the idea. It is definitely a situation though, Jake, where you're looking at your screen and you're saying, gross. Calvin Ridley's right here. But there is this opportunity with Cam Ward, who is, you know, we've seen this with other number one overall picks, though they don't live up to the expectations. We've seen it a lot of times. But to me, you know, topped 1,000 yards, led the NFL in air yard share. He had a little bit of a later surge once DeAndre Hopkins was kind of out of the picture. He averaged 11.6 points per game, wide receiver 26. So again, I'm not in on the top 20, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm out on drafting Calvin Ridley as a whole. It's just going to be one of those things where it's late in your draft. You're looking around, you're saying, okay, I need some wide receiver depth. And I don't necessarily think that he's going to be a bad option, because I do think that the risk with Cam Ward and just Calvin Ridley being a little bit older receiver is baked into his price. Is he old, by the way? I'm just saying that. But now that I think about it, how old is Calvin Ridley?
He's on the wrong side of 30, which is what 30. We really focus on for wide receiver. Yep.
You ever have those moments though with players where you're like talking about them and you're like, oh, he's kind of older, and then you like think back and you're like, wait, no, what? He's 26? That's crazy. I thought he's been in the league forever.
Check my ID and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be saying that these guys are old like that. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
I'm like, wait a second. Is he older? But he is. He's 30 years old. He's going to be 31 in December this year. So that's my take. So it's kind of, again, wishy-washy. Like, I don't think he's going to be a top 20 receiver. No, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go out and say, all right, for wide receiver depth and with the potential that, yeah, this is a better team because Will Levis isn't on it. Sorry, Will Levis fans. It was just so brutally awful last year. I'm kind of buying into that idea. Late round pickup with Calvin Ridley, I'm okay with it. Or keeping him on my dynasty teams, I'm okay with it too.
Yeah, and let's put a rosy spin on this just to end it here for this portion, because I do feel bad a little bit. I do think that Cam Ward can come in and take the Tennessee offense from the 27th scoring offense last season to like a fringe top 20 scoring offense this year. Like he will elevate it to that, which should hopefully make Calvin Ridley just a little bit more consistent for your fantasy teams and less frustrating to have to handle on a week-to-week basis.
I like it. And you honestly, you said it too. Like they did add in the offseason, but he should still be the focal point of that offense. So you made it really nice. I'm trying to look for our projections, and unfortunately for Cam Ward, I'm so sorry. I've had to scroll a couple times and you're on the second page. So does not mean it's a great situation for you when you have to go to the second page of the projections. But we do have him projected coming out QB 26. So that's not great, but that's okay. You're a rookie and everything's going to be fine. It looks like 498 pass attempts, 3,405 yards, and 12 interceptions. That's okay. You're a rookie. And 20 touchdowns. Not bad. QB 26 finish, maybe. It's better than Will Levis. I'm so sorry. Someone had to say it. Someone had to say it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm like, this is bad. I'm continuing to scroll and I can't find Cam Ward's projections.
It's not good.
Right,
I feel we need to pull out of this one.
We gotta go. We're gonna talk to our friends over at Bud Light here.
Check out the new whip.
Tight.
Fully custom.
How many Bud Lights can you fit in that puppy?
As many Bud Lights as it takes.
It's a lot of Bud Lights. You have to give me one of those.
Continuing on with our dynasty debates here, looking at the crystal ball, trying to predict the future or buy and sell some of these predictions that we have. Let's go over to the Los Angeles Chargers here, Jake, and see what you think about this one. It's a clean split in carries between Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton the whole season. Just straight up, easy, nothing, no top 10 conversations, no nothing for fantasy finishes, just a clean split between them the whole year. Buying or selling this situation.
Kendall, can I do a push? Is that a thing? Mm-hmm. I don't want to straddle either side of this. I just want to push. I want to say that, yeah, that seems like it definitely could happen. But there's an optimist in me that says by the end of the season, it's going to shift. So I guess what I'll say is to start off the year, if you're drafting either of these guys in redraft, if you have them on your dynasty squads, I think you're going to be a little bit upset with the way that the distribution works. Because Najee Harris, we know that he can handle a full workload. He's had it for 4 years over in Pittsburgh. He's still relatively young, right? Talking about this kind of age gap with running backs. He's 26, so he's still, potentially in his prime there. He's a good pass catcher. If we're just looking at how they're going to split the workload, it makes some sense to say, hey, Omarion, we'll work you in a little slow. We've got lots of plans for you in the long term. We don't want to burn you out too quickly either, especially while we have this very competent guy on a 1-year contract that we can kind of get the most out of that contract with. So I would say that Najee Harris is probably going to be the first guy, but eventually the clock is going to tick. That hand is going to roll over and it's going to be Omarion time. I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming.
I agree. Maybe this can be a push, and I know people listening are like, "Oh, boo, take a side." No, we can't, because I can see this situation where yes, they paid Najee Harris, and we know that this team wants to run the ball. That's what Harbaugh does. That's just exactly what this team identity is. So that means that they're going to use Najee Harris, and I've said this stat probably every single time that we've done this show, but this man is durable. So you can't really necessarily wait around and expect, like, this is one of the running backs where, and knock on wood, you can't really say, oh, well, he's injury prone. Of course, Omarion Hampton is going to step in when Najee Harris goes down. He's got 1,000+ rush yards in each of the past 4 seasons, and he hasn't missed a game. So the other side really of the conversation, Jake, is just, the efficiency or lack of efficiency maybe with Najee Harris. And that's where you could see Omarion Hampton really step in, because when you look at Najee Harris, he's been like the combination explosive play and success rate last season. It was not good. And there's just other little stats that you can point to with Najee Harris where you can say, all right, he's not good in these sort of areas. But I don't know, when you look at him, he's got the 3 down ability. He had a 24% missed tackle rate, which was the 8th highest mark last year among running backs. We know how good he can be. So I'm in on this just by saying it's a push. Our projections, let me give you this. Our projections have Omarion Hampton with 203 rush attempts, Najee Harris with 132. So that's at 905 rushing yards for Omarion Hampton, 554 for Najee Harris. All that to say, Najee Harris is going, like, he is going to stick around in my mind. There's no way, at least at the beginning, unless Omarion Hampton just shows that he is this elite running back, which could happen. Then they have to say, we have to shift it more to Omarion Hampton. This feels like a split at least halfway through the season.
Yeah, it does definitely feel like that halfway point is going to be what we have to watch out for. And last year was such a different story with the Chargers. They brought in Gus Edwards. I know a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for Gus Edwards. He's also older. He's historically been less efficient and less of an all-around back than Najee Harris is as well. But if I can put again, maybe a rosier spin, a glass half full approach on this one, it's that there's room for you to get the most out of both of these running backs for fantasy next year. I think in redraft, probably makes a lot of sense to draft Najee Harris. He's probably going to go very late. I think in Dynasty, you can trade peanuts to get him on your team because everybody does love some Omarion Hampton. I do as well, but I think there's a route where you're like, I'll give nothing to start off the year with hopefully Najee Harris getting a lot of the workload. And then maybe also it's time week 5, week 6 to send some offers out for Omarion in redraft and Dynasty, frankly, of like, this wasn't what I signed up for. This wasn't what I wanted when I took this guy. You might have a little bit of a window, not saying you're going to get them super discounted, but there's a window, I think, where you can utilize both of them.
I just think in this offense, like they performed almost like a year, they exploded a year too early. Not too early, but a year earlier than what I expected them to do. I did not expect them to have the season that they did in 2024. And so to me, I'm looking at it and in my eyes, there can be a world where we live in where Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton are both solid fantasy assets in Dynasty and redraft, and they could both be successful in this offense. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility with either of them. Now, Javonte Williams, that could be a different story here, Jake. We might have to change our tune with Javonte Williams. I don't know if we can say the same for him. So buying or selling, Javonte Williams is actually good and shows flashes of his rookie season. Hand up, I wrote this.
You can't laugh halfway through it.
It sounds way meaner when I read it out loud than just typing it out. So I feel bad. I'm sorry, Javonte, but Javonte Williams is actually good and shows flashes of his rookie season there. I did it without laughing.
How do I say this nicely? I think that Javonte Williams will finish about as good as we expect a guy like Javonte Williams could do in that offense. So I think Javonte Williams is arguably, he probably is being undervalued, like straight up for the Cowboys this season. I don't think it's going to look pretty for Javonte Williams, and I don't think we're going to get him looking like his rookie self. So from that perspective, no. We're not looking at that rookie year 2021, 1,219 yards for Javonte Williams. What I do think we could do at least is say, what if the Cowboys, A, stand pat with who they have in the backfield, and they don't add Nick Chubb or trade for Travis Etienne yet in this offseason? What if they stick with Javonte Williams? Well, I'm not worried about Miles Sanders. I'm lower on Jayden Blue than a lot of folks are. And I know this team, I know how much they value a veteran presence in that backfield, for better or for worse. So whether Javonte Williams is efficient with the Dallas Cowboys, I'm not going to say. And I'm not going to pretend that that's even a likelihood. But with Dak Prescott back and hopefully healthy, there should be a path for Javonte Williams, if he can maintain his status as the lead guy, to pay off. He's your RB3. He's a flex play. But I think people are just being like, nah, I'm done. I'm not even going to try with this guy. Whereas I'm willing to say, like, yeah, he wasn't good last year. I'm not going to pretend that he was. But also, he wasn't completely unusable. And he should be a little bit better this year.
He was pretty unusable, right? It was bad. Like my thing, Jake, is like it's not as if he hasn't been given the opportunity to be the RB1 in an offense, right? The Broncos tried to let him do it last season, and the guys in that backfield weren't going into this year, they weren't stellar. We didn't say, oh, if they didn't draft RJ Harvey, we want any piece of Jaleel McLaughlin that we can get. It just wasn't happening that way. So for me with Javonte, I think I might be fully out, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'm going to be okay with it, because that means Javonte Williams did go back to closer to the rookie season that we saw from him. But I don't know. He's had those opportunities before where he didn't have much competition around him. So, and Dallas not always make us frustrated when we're talking about, running back situations. Like, it just feels like it could also be a committee approach, right? Where, we're not thinking about Miles Sanders, but he gets in there. Jayden Blue, obviously, they spent, even though it wasn't as early as we thought they would, they still spent in the draft on a rookie. So I could see all three of them getting involved. And once it gets to the three-headed monster conversations for us in fantasy, like, we just never want to be in on that.
It's not ideal. I'm not going to say that it's ideal. There's 3 stats, though. Hey, if I can just leave you with this. If you're really interested in Javonte Williams and you're listening to this, I want you to walk away feeling like at least moderately okay with yourself. He was a top 10 running back last season in target share, targets per route run, and the 2-minute drill snap share. And I do want to just call that out because the 2-minute drill snap count is really important from a coaching perspective. Yeah, Sean Payton obviously didn't like him a lot, but he trusted in him to be in those situations where you do have to do a little bit of everything. You have to be a good pass blocker. Mm-hmm. You have to be ready to catch the ball. You have to be ready to score when you get to the 10 and 5-yard line. So there's a teeny tiny bit of optimism that Sean Payton did not write him off in that way last year.
Folks, he was still the RB36 in fantasy points per game. It's like,
come on, man, you got to undercut it like that.
I'm sorry. Maybe he could do that. He could be a top 35 running back. We can stamp that, right? That's fine. Wait, one last question here, Jake, just to finish off with, because I know you're not necessarily, it's not that you don't like him. You're not necessarily as high on everyone as Jayden Blue. Are you someone that's willing, though, to wait in drafts? If you're in a draft right now, obviously it's different with the rookie drafts. If you're in a startup, is Jayden Blue just someone you're not necessarily touching because you don't see the upside?
I'm not off of him, but he's such a question mark where it's like the range of outcomes is really wild for that guy. So there's a lot of these rookie running backs that I definitely prefer to Jayden Blue, but I'm not completely off him. And heck, in redraft, I have an expectation it's probably going to be Javonte and Jayden Blue going very close to each other in drafts. And at that point, it's like, roll the dice, pick your favorite.
Yeah. Won't it be funny in like week 10 when Miles Sanders is the one that we were supposed to be drafting and we just look around and we say, Jerry, come on, give us anything. Throw us anything here, Jerry. We can't keep doing this with you. All right. So Javonte Williams, maybe. We were trying to be nice. Javonte Williams, obviously a huge fan of the show. So we still like you, as a person. The Lions. Let's go over to the Lions. This Lions offense falls off with the loss of their coordinator, Ben Johnson. Buying or selling, just straight up, the Lions fall off a little bit in 2025.
Depends on your definition of a little bit, but I'm selling this idea. I'm selling the idea that Ben Johnson is the thing that kept this offense moving. And it's certainly not that he wasn't a key factor. And I do believe that he'll be able to take some of that magic over to Chicago. I also think people should temper that expectation just a little bit. Sorry to our producer, Matt Swing, Bears fan. But I do think with Ben Johnson, at least, we only have 1 year of data with Dan Campbell as the head coach of the Lions without Ben Johnson. And that's why it's so tough, because it's Campbell's first year coaching. We have Jared Goff's first year with the team. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown's rookie season. Also, the offensive coordinator was very limited. That was there prior. So it's like, how much of that was Ben Johnson coming in the second year, and how much of it was just the team gelling the second year? But what I do expect is this team to remain super aggressive. They were doing that under Dan Campbell before Johnson got there. I expect them to do it long after Ben Johnson has been gone. So from that perspective, like, we're going to see a lot of pass attempts, a lot of rush attempts, if nothing else, out of this team, because they ain't getting off the field on fourth down most of the time.
No.
So that's where I'm kind of selling that.
I'm with you because I like to try and like keep things pretty steady. If I'm saying, it's the things that, we look at with Tampa Bay, where it's just, if I've believed that Tampa Bay can continue to be good with all their offensive coordinator turnovers, like, why do we not think that the Lions without Ben Johnson can do the same thing? Because I do love Dan Campbell as a coach as well. So I'm with you on this one, more so that I might be a little bit more off on Jared Goff than a lot of our consensus rankers. I can't put him even close to the top 12, and that's where he's going in some of these drafts. And I just can't do that, Jake. I think you're drafting him more in redraft, of course, talking underdog here too. I think you're taking him more at his ceiling than what he could actually give you overall. They have a harder schedule going into 2025. They're tied for the second hardest schedule, I believe, with the Chicago Bears might be. So things could get tough here, but it doesn't mean that I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to come down, Jameson Williams, the running backs like Sam Laporta. I just can't get on board with that. Really quickly for this last one, because I wanted to make sure we got to JJ McCarthy, if only for Thor and Nystrom to know that we're talking about JJ McCarthy here. But crystal ball here, JJ McCarthy has a Patrick Mahomes like sophomore season. And I say sophomore season, I know, Jake, we didn't get to see his actual rookie season because he didn't get to play. But what if JJ McCarthy is actually like phenomenal and good?
Let's be clear about what that means for a Patrick Mahomes sophomore season. We're talking 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns. That's what Mahomes put up in his sophomore season. Hey, I love Thor. I want to give Thor as many of the good vibes as possible, but I can't get there with this. I think that there are some corollaries. There are some parallels in that, yeah, he has a great team around him. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got TJ Hawkinson. He's got Jordan Addison. He's got Kevin O'Connell, the QB whisperer who did help resurrect Sam Darnold and got the most out of Josh Dobbs, for Pete's sake. So I do think that he's on a path to success, but, you know, top 12 in his rookie season, it's there, it's possible, but I'm not trying to get him on that Mahomes track just yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's, I agree where I'm pushing the idea. I'm selling the idea that he is Patrick Mahomes in his first full season with the Minnesota Vikings. But that does not mean that I do not like JJ McCarthy going into this. He's one of my favorite late round, again, talking underdog here, late round quarterbacks to go and get, you know, the sneaky stack. You get a Jordan Addison later if you miss out on Justin Jefferson. JJ McCarthy's there a little bit later. So I agree with you here too, Jake. Like Kevin O'Connell, it's almost a thing of where I'm not fading Kevin O'Connell in this situation and being able to get a quarterback who they let Sam Darnold go after giving them a really solid overall regular season. Now the playoffs are a whole different story. The lights got a little bit too bright there, but I mean, they were comfortable enough to let him go instead of being like, yeah, let's just keep you around in case JJ's not good. So their belief in JJ McCarthy makes me almost have to believe that, yeah, he's probably going to step up and he's got the weapons, Jake. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison had a solid year last year as well. TJ Hawkinson, I'm back. TJ Hawkinson coming off his injury and now he has a full season removed from that. I'm excited about this team. So I'm in with you on JJ, just not Patrick Mahomes level. I'm sorry. We can't go that far.
But how about this? How about this last bit? Would I be shocked if JJ McCarthy outscored Patrick Mahomes this year in fantasy football? Not really. I wouldn't be that shocked. That's a little bit of how my low expectations are for Patrick Mahomes, but also what I think that JJ can do.
You're like, don't look at the Patrick Mahomes side there. That means I just don't like him. JJ McCarthy, we have right now QB 20 in our projections. So that's not bad, right? That's all that to say that he could pretty much outperform, but he's going in the range of like finishing similarly to Geno Smith, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold. Ooh. But I'm with you. I can't fade the idea that Kevin O'Connell doesn't know what he's doing. He does, and he's able to get everything that he can out of those quarterbacks. So sorry, Thor, not Patrick Mahomes, but we still like him. Are you buying him in Dynasty? Like, are you trying to go and trade for him? Or
absolutely.
Fairly?
I was going to say he's kind of the forgotten man there in Dynasty right now. So go get him before the supposed Patrick Mahomes ascension.
You heard it here first. That's what's going to happen here with the Minnesota Vikings and JJ McCarthy. All right. As always, everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I know you felt a little tension. It's because we're in a Dynasty league together and we're so excited about it. I'm totally kidding. There's no tension at all. How could you have that with Jake Trowbridge here? As always, though, make sure you go to fantasylife.com. Go and read all of those articles 100% free. The projections that we talked about are also over there, so you can see projections for all the quarterbacks, all the running backs going into the 2025 season. We also have like week 1 projections. If you're that much of a sicko, we love you. Go and check those out. And again, sign up for that newsletter 100% free. For Jake Trowbridge, for Kendall Valenzuela, I appreciate you. We'll see you here next time.